I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won. Welcome back, everybody, to Gunslingers right here on
the Gunslinger Syndicated Radio Network.
And we're listening to one of the foremost guys in the 1911 world. Scott, you still there?
Yeah, still here.
Very good. Scare you off with our singing. Good.
Yeah. No, I started off with asking you, what the heck did I ask you to begin with? I forgot.
Favorite 1911 or?
Yeah, well,
the one that's missed.
Yeah, the one that.
Oh, yes.
The one that missed. Now, what can you actually pick a favorite in your collection, or I can't? It's like picking a favorite song. I can give you maybe a top 10, but I can't do one. Can you pick a favorite?
I don't know that I've got one particular favorite because, to so many people, they look at these guns and they all look alike. But if you know a little bit about them, or the more you know, the more differences you see. Mm-hmm. So there's so many different sub-variations that it's hard to pick a favorite. Honestly, I think if I were picking a favorite, it wouldn't necessarily be the most valuable gun I've got, but, I kind of collect history. I probably have, I don't know, maybe 50 or 100 identified pieces. And the more I know about the person who was issued or officers that purchased the guns and their stories, those are really cool. Real briefly, 2 or 3 of my favorites. One is a Harvard med school surgeon who was killed on the battlefield in August 1918 in France and awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, highest award for valor next to the Medal of Honor. And, I've got the telegram where his wife was notified that he was wounded on the battlefield. I've got the handwritten letter from the chaplain who was with him when he died on the battlefield. In fact, she got the telegram in August when he was wounded, and she didn't know anything until she received the letter in November from the chaplain to find out that he had died that day. And, that's a piece that speaks to me. Or another doctor assigned with the Marines that was at Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Saipan, awarded the Silver Star at Saipan, and his job was simply to treat Marines shot in the head and face. And I've got 2 newspaper articles. He was from the Boston area. I've got one written by the Boston Globe and a second article, another Boston newspaper. But the last article, in 1943, the Boston Globe article said that he had already treated, I think it was 648 Marines shot in the head and face. And then in 1944, after Saipan, when he came home, the article indicated that he had treated over 2,500 Marines shot in the head and face.
Wow.
And I've got all of his gear, his medical kit. I've got, all the history. And, there's, like I say, all the identified pieces. The more you find out about the people, it just raises the hair on your arms. And
that's more like an altar than a museum at this point.
We had a 1911 come in several years back, and it was engraved on the side, given to a Captain O'Keefe up in Canada from the city of Winnipeg in 1918. We looked him up, and he's a Victorian Cross winner. Yeah.
Wow.
And I got a letter from Colt that stated that this gun went to the city of Winnipeg in 1918. And so I think it's pretty legit, and I've had a few people look at it. I've had some pretty large offers on it, but I haven't been able to part with it yet. So.
Yeah, well, and I think it's, those are the ones that are, really hard to ever think about parting with, selling.
Yeah.
But, now, if you were to ask my wife, Vicki, her favorite gun, that's real simple. That's Colt 1911 number 403. And so she identifies with that when we display. And, usually that gun will be in a display when we display. If I start getting that out and showing it to people, she starts giving me the evil eye. Yeah, she's pretty attached to it.
Yeah. I have a friend out here who claims that he has a Singer prototype. He's been a long-time customer, and he's actually fairly famous. So I'm not going to mention any names, but what
What
do
are
you
the chances?
Yeah, I'd love to get pictures of it and send them to you. See what you think, but he's a little stingy.
I remember years ago. Chuck Clausen called me one day, and I ran up there because he had received what he thought was a Singer prototype. So we ran up and spent the day looking at it, and we did determine, in fact, that it was a Singer prototype. At that time, it came from a gentleman in Arizona, but we're probably talking 20 years ago, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, it could be the same gun. This guy's pretty
very
well off.
Yeah, possibly. Do you know if it has a number put on the side of it that was not there? You know, like a dealer or somebody put a number on the gun. I think probably to log it in. This one had a number that was added.
I do not, because I've never seen it. Like I said, I'd love to get pictures of it, but he has not.
Sure.
He keeps promising to bring it into my auction, but there's promises and then there's promises.
Right. Sure.
Okay, so
and a year or two ago, Cowan's auction here in the Cincinnati area brought me up a Singer that I looked at, and it was kind of cool. It was actually a cutaway, and it came from a Singer employee. It had a boatload of documentation from the Singer employee.
Wow.
And it had the same slab-style stocks on it. The gun was 100% Singer. That was the first Singer cutaway that I had seen.
Yeah.
So, things like that. And supposedly that guy got two of them, one for himself and one for his brother. So we don't know if that second gun will ever surface. But
wow,
what a good brother.
Yeah. So, but prototypes, and whether or not they're prototypes, there were guns that are sometimes identified as prototypes that were either rejects that got out of the factory, or one of my Singers, was a presentation to the CEO of Sperry Corporation, and of course, Sperry did so much work for the Army Air Force, and of course, the Singers went to the Air Force, Army Air Force. So, but regardless, I would love to see the photographs. Maybe I'll get it in hand one day and be able to authenticate it.
I will do what I can. Scott, we only got about a minute left before we got a hard break. So tell us about your website.
Yes, please.
M1911 info. They can just do the M1911info.com, and I think it's a pretty good resource. I own most of the guns in the Clausen books and other books, and the primary thing you get through there is just a boatload of photographs and information. So every photograph on the site are photographs that I've taken. I don't rely on secondhand information or someone else's photographs. So everything that you see on the site is my opinion and my photographs.
All right.
Nice. Look at that. Awesome.
I will be, and you said it's $40 a year?
Yes.
Yeah, I will be joining on Tuesday because we're always looking for more and more information.
We need it.
Yeah. So, Scott, it was a real pleasure to talk to you. I sure appreciate you coming on.
What a fun interview.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get you back on there. I know there's a ton more questions out there. We want to pick your brain about everything we can. So thank you so much, Scott.
All right.
Okay, Scott.
Well, fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you again.
All right, guys, in our second
Power
packed hour, this is time for phone calls. Give us a call. What's the number?
866-870-5752. Once again, 866-870-5752.
Give us a call. We got a few that we'll get to right away. You're listening to Gunslingers right here on
the Gunslinger Syndicated Radio Network.
And we'll be right back.